Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome back. And there is a load of commotion going on outside my house. I've got the windows open because it's really hot. I hope it's not a massive problem. But welcome back, Catherine. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Recovering from the weekend that's just been. I was at a festival, so jumping back in, trying to get my life back together and figure out what I'm doing. Hello to
where
everyone
was the festival?
It was near Cambridge, up in Cambridgeshire. It was Secret Garden Party. It was really good fun.
That's cool.
Really enjoy it. It was kind of small, up and coming artists, and the whole point is leave no trace. Sorry. So the idea is that you don't leave any rubbish everywhere, and everyone's really nice and kind, and it's quite a small festival. It was really, really good actually. So
that's cool.
Absolutely. I want to say hi to everyone in the chat. D. Williams, good evening. Alex, we got Mrs. J. We have Karen, Awaken H. Patrick, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be talking about reaching current Scientologists, because this is a question I get asked all the time. I don't know about you, Catherine, but people ask me all the time, like, how do I get through to a Scientologist? Like, what messaging works? What questions can I ask? How do I help someone leave? And there's no universal way of doing it. Like, there's not a one shot, oh, you just need to say this and the penny will drop and they'll leave. It's a complicated question. So I think we'll just talk today about things that from our own experience that would have helped or did help with us leaving, and experience we've had speaking to current Scientologists, because we both have been helping people leave. We've been, talking on YouTube and stuff. So just talk about our experiences, really. What do you think?
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good, because I want to specifically reach people who are still in, people I know who are still in the Sea Org, mostly in LA, some in Columbus. But I'm hoping that if I talk about specific people and specific stories and experiences with those people and kind of talk to those people, maybe they'll come across this video, especially if I put their name in the description of the video.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come across this video and find me, and even if it happens years from now and they're like, oh yeah, I remember, I know this person, or they know me, and maybe I can help them get out, because I'd really like to help people that way. I was thinking of this the other day, specifically, Rachel Hastings is a friend of mine, and she left the Sea Org a couple of years ago, and we were in LA together in the same building. Like, I was working in that building. She was in there occasionally, but I met her when she was a Sea Org member. And then I went to Columbus, and then I escaped. Didn't, particularly think about her more or less than anyone else. And then when I heard that she was out, I was like, that's so great. And then the next conversation we had, we were both out of the Sea Org and out of Scientology, and it was amazing. And we were just like, wow, this feels really weird. And I remember you from blah, blah, blah. And she caught me up on everything that happened with her. And even though you may work and be around certain people in the Sea Org, I mean, you obviously work with other people, and or you're friends with other people in other units or whatever. And even though you think that you might know kind of a little bit about them, you don't really know.
Yeah.
You don't really know what is happening with them, and how they're being abused while they're there in the Sea Org. You don't know until you hear it afterwards. And I heard what happened with her, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
I can't believe all this stuff actually happened to you.
And it's mad how I have a very similar experience with Rachel, actually, that now you mention her name, because she came to London to film me when I was book selling in the test center. And I didn't know at the time, but we did a live stream where she was talking about her trips to London and filming, and we realized in that live stream that it was her. Like, we crossed paths inside, and I was like, no way. And she told me all this backstory about someone called Seppi, who is a Sea Org member that was working at the time for Gold, I guess now it's SMP, and how the reason Rachel had to come to London to film was because Seppi had messed up and she hadn't done what she was supposed to. So Gold had to fly Rachel
Wow.
over. And like this whole story was just really interesting to hear about what was going on behind the scenes with this person I was working with that I had no idea about at the time, because
Yeah.
it's so compartmentalized in Scientology.
Yeah, and if someone's going through some ethics action, or if they're like in some sort of trouble, they're not necessarily going to talk about it with you, like,
Yeah.
and they're told not to talk about it, because it's spreading in theta.
Yeah.
So you can't even be like, oh, this is what's going on. I mean, obviously some people because you were closer to them or whatever, or they were your junior,
Mm.
or they were your senior, and you knew a little bit more about what was going on, but generally you don't you don't know
Yeah.
what's going on with people, and it can be really, really outrageous,
Mm.
like what was happening with Rachel, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So, and it makes me think about people I used to work with, and I was thinking about a guy I worked with for many years in LA. When I worked in the kitchen, I was okay. So the person in charge of the kitchen is the chief steward. I was the deputy chief steward. So there was essentially two of us in charge type thing, and then we split up the duties. And I worked with him for many years, and when you work with somebody for that long, you get to know them pretty well. And he was a he was a he was an interesting guy. He was a German guy, and if he's watching this, he knows that I'm talking about him. He was from Germany, born in Denmark, born into I don't think he was his mom was on staff, I believe, in Stuttgart, or she was on and off staff. I don't think she's on staff currently. But he was born into Scientology, him and his brother. And I met his brother actually, and his brother is a goofier version of him. Have you ever seen people like that? Like their sibling is like they just seem like a goofier version
Yeah.
of the other
Yeah.
one. So I'm like, wow, it's a goofier version of Chris. This is great.
Sure.
He
Sure.
came and did some training in LA at one point because he was on Stuttgart staff. And so yeah, we worked together. Actually, we worked together in two different areas. We worked together while we were in data for 7 years. And then we worked together. And then I went to the kitchen because I got in trouble. So they sent me to the
Mm.
kitchen to work. And and then he went to another area, and then he eventually came to the kitchen.
Right.
And he ended up in charge of the whole place, and I ended up being his deputy. So we worked together for like a total of so I was in 1998 to 2005. That's 7 years, and then another 12.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a long time.
But
I
how
didn't.
would you, so this is the thing that I'm thinking about. It's like, you know that person really, really well,
Yeah,
and they know you well as well. And it's really interesting when you start thinking about how to get through to that person, because for example, when I was in at London Org protesting in March, it was the first time a bunch of people I used to work with saw me as an SP because I was
yeah,
protesting. The
yeah,
last time they saw me, I was on staff, and they know what I'm like as a person. So to see that cognitive dissonance of like everything they've been told about what an SP is, and me not matching up to that because they remember me as a different person,
right.
um how to reach those people and get them to start questioning um what would work and what wouldn't work, and it's different for every single person. How would you, if you were to have a conversation with this Chris person, what would you say? How would you approach that conversation to try
I
and get
think
him to
I
start
would I think I would tell him about my current life. That's what I would tell him the most
Mm.
about, because it doesn't seem like, excuse me, you don't want to get into debating
Yeah.
about Scientology, because that's just not going to go anywhere, and a person has to make up their own mind if they want to be involved. And if they don't want to be involved anymore, they have to decide if that's right for them personally. So getting into the whole Scientology debate, and Scientology's a cult, and trying to like tell somebody like that, like, oh, you're in a cult, they're just gonna ignore you. So I wouldn't even get into that.
Yeah, I remember again when I was in Div 6, so I was public facing, and I'd have people come in all the time and be like, "You're in a cult, you know, if you want to leave, blink twice, you know, I'll help you get out." And I used to think, no, it's like, you're so wrong. And I just want to, it made me double down. It made me want to convince them and prove to them how wrong they are, even
Yeah,
more so. Um,
exactly.
you know, everyone is different and there's no universal way. Saying it's a cult will stop people joining. So it's good to, you know, raise awareness that way. But if you're trying to reach people currently in Scientology, I think it's about questions and conversations to get them thinking, planting a seed of doubt that over time will grow, that they start thinking about, and they go away from that going, you know, and over time they will perhaps start thinking away. Because, for example, I remember being told about SPs, you know, they're just going to try and convince you to leave. They're going to try and change your mind. They're covertly hostile. So their agenda is to change you, and bring you out and bring you away. And like, you know, they're trying to impose their beliefs on you. So I try really hard when I'm speaking to people who are currently in Scientology or protesting or whatever, is try and make it really clear. No, look, I'm not trying to convince you to leave. It's your decision. I just want you to know that if you do decide to leave, there's so many people out here that are willing to help you and support you. And we're not going to convince you of anything, right? We're not here to try and change your mind. You have to make the decision yourself. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's exactly right. And I think that letting people know, like letting specific people know that you will support them and help them is very
Mm,
important. And it's also important if somebody, like if somebody's in, okay, so how can I say this so that I have someone I'm in contact with who's very much under the radar. So if somebody's in Scientology or in the Sea Org, the person they know who is left, or people they know who have left Scientology, left the Sea Org, they're gonna be, whatever they hear about those people is gonna resonate more with them than, say, somebody who left, 30 years ago, or who's been out for 30 years.
mm,
I don't think that's gonna resonate as much because it's not somebody they know. It's not as real to them as someone who just left like a few years ago. And especially if it's somebody who how do I put it? Uh, Especially if it's somebody who they respected or they were friends with. Like I
mm.
had a lot of friends, and I had I oh, in LA and in Columbus, I had respect of people because I did my job. I tried to help people as much as I could. I tried to, like, you know, be a team member. you know, and
Yeah,
I wasn't in trouble continuously and whatever. I kind of kept my head down because I didn't want to attract the attention of the ethics officer and end up getting a an interrogation and
yeah,
end up saying, well, I'm actually not happy here, and I actually don't really want to be here, and I really want to do something else, but at the same time I don't, because I'm helping to clear the planet. And it's just a whole complicated
sure.
thought process that you have. So I think that what would really help people is recognizing somebody and hearing their story and
Mm,
hearing how they got out, which is why I enjoy telling my story, because I know now that I've helped several people who
yeah,
knew, because they knew me and they're like, oh, I want to talk to her, I know her. These other people might be kind of scary, oh, Mike Render, it's
yeah,
scary. Mark and Claire, that's scary. They're like major SPs, but somebody who might be a little, it's a
yeah.
little more I don't know how
Relatable.
you Yeah, relatable. I
Yeah.
was gonna say confrontable. That's what
Ah,
you'd say in
in
Scientology. Like
Scientology, yeah.
it's easier to
There's
confront.
Yeah, there's a really good example of this. Kellycopter did a video just the other day about she was outside the test center here in London and was speaking to Maggie. And Maggie is this person I used to report my stats to every week. She was the CEO CPLO UK, which stands for Commanding Officer of the Continental Liaison Publications Office. So she was in charge of the book sales in the whole of the UK. She was based over in Denmark. But I know her fairly well, and I saw her when I was protesting in Croydon the other week, and it was really interesting to have a brief conversation with her and chat with her, and bought her a can of Coke, and then Kellycopter bumped into her at the test centre. Kelly didn't know at the time that I knew Maggie, but Kelly mentioned Mitch Brisker's name, and Maggie was like, "Oh yeah, I know Mitch. He was in," and she named the unit that he was in over at Gold, and she didn't know that he had left. And Kelly was like, "Yeah, now he's apparently an SP." And you can't see Maggie's face, but you can tell as soon as a name is mentioned that she knows, she's suddenly like, "Oh." So you're not just some random person, protesting because you've read something in the media about Scientology. You're
Yeah.
relating it to people that she knows and knows that are good people from their experience. And so I think that's, for me, what would have helped when I was in Scientology is making it relatable to my experience,
Yeah.
asking questions, where do you really feel happy when you are running around and your stats are down and it's Thursday at 2 and you're really stressed, and are you really saving the planet when you're selling 20 books, or when you're giving out 100 pieces of promo? Is that really clearing the planet? Things
Right.
like that to get you thinking.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just thinking the same thing. And also like God, I just lost my thought. It just like
It's okay, it happens. But yeah, like
it
things
just
that make
flew
it
away.
relatable, if you
Yeah.
don't have personal experience with them, mentioning names or whatever to see if there's anyone they know, especially
Yeah. Oh,
someone.
that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. When I was still in and I was watching videos of people of former SEERG members, the ones I watched the most were the people I knew more. Like I knew Chris Shelton. I knew Chris Shelton. I met Chris Shelton when I was in the SEERG. And I definitely knew he was a real person. He was definitely a SEERG member. He's definitely a Scientologist. And so I watched a whole bunch of his stuff because I'm like, I want to know what happened with this guy. Like,
Mm,
what exactly happened to make him go from being a very dedicated, we would call it on purpose,
yeah.
on purpose SEERG member to being a suppressive person who just attacks Scientology or whatever I was going through my mind at the time. And I
Sure.
really wanted to know, like, what was his thought process? How did he come to the conclusions that he came to? Because when you're in the SEERG, you get told, and when you're in Scientology, you get told, oh, it's just they committed too many overt acts, which just means that they did bad things, and so they did all these bad things and committed these so-called crimes, and so that made them turn against Scientology. Because the
Mm,
only reason you would oppose Scientology is if you committed a crime.
yeah. And
That's the only
and you're
reason.
told that these people are making things up, they're just disaffected, and they've all got together and colluded this story that Scientology is this abusive organization, and they're making it all up, and they've got this hidden agenda. And so hearing about someone that must have been kind of like, wow, okay, well, I didn't think that he was that sort of person, and I know that he's not making it up because he was definitely a SEAL member. I knew him when I was in. Like, what was your thought process at that point when you saw his videos talking about his experience? Did you think he's making it all up, or did you give him a kind of
It
time of
was
day to
weird
listen?
because if you read about, and I'm just now starting to realize this stuff in like the last few months, but if you read about if you read Steve Hassan's combating cult mind control, and he talks about how there's like a cult personality and
Mm,
then there's the real person, right? So I could feel that with myself. Like I felt like there were like at least two versions of myself. at the same time. And there was one who was this dedicated Sea Org member, Scientologist, I'll be here forever type thing. I'll do my job until I drop dead. There was that person, and then there was this other person that was starting to go like, I'm not happy here. I feel like shit. I'm I'm in physical pain. I'm mentally very, very unhappy. And then I started watching this stuff and talking to John, and I started going, wow, this is really what is occurring. This is really what it's all about. So it's like there was these two versions of myself, and then the more I thought about leaving and thought about, okay, this is the right thing to do. I really want to do this. How am I going to do this? The more that kind of like those two versions of myself kind of came together. And then at some point came fully together, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm getting out of here. And that might have even been, on the day I left, because I'm finally like being true to myself and doing what I want to do and making my own decision about what I want to do with my life. And then it was like, okay, I'm gone. I'm out of here. I'm going to do something else. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one thing to think about, is that when you're recruited onto staff or into the Sea Org or whatever, you're sold lies. Like one thing I was told, because I wanted to do creative stuff, and I was like, there's gold in era productions and making all these fantastic commercials and videos and music, and all of that's going in towards the promotion of Scientology. And how cool is that there's a unit of people who are just doing creative stuff all
Yeah.
day every day, and at the same time helping to clear the planet. And these recruiters are saying, yeah, if you join the Sea Org, we'll post you straight to gold, and you can spend all day every day doing what you love, which is creative stuff, and you'll also be helping the planet every single day by doing creative stuff. And I'm like, that's amazing, sign me up. Obviously,
Yeah.
we all know that nobody gets posted at gold straight away as soon as you join the Sea Org. It's one of the hardest parts of the Sea Org to join. They were just telling me what I wanted to hear in order to sign the contract. The same was when I joined staff. I was like, I wanted to be a lawyer at the time, and they were like, cool, you can get some legal experience and you can work in the legal section of the Department of Special Affairs and it'll be great. And the moment I signed my contract, I was posted in Division 6 and I was book selling rather than in legal. And I was a bit disappointed, but at that point I thought, well, I'll give it a go, see if I enjoy it. And if someone had said to me, hey, do you remember when you joined, they told you this and you've not done that? Like, is that still a dream of yours? Do you still want to do that? Because in the real world, you can do what you want to do. There's not someone there telling you what job you have to have or where you need to go.
Right, exactly. And the other point of that, and what people don't realize, is that the person who recruits you and signs you up for staff is not the person who's going to decide what your job is.
Yeah.
Ever. It's never like that. The person, and they are under such tremendous pressure to get recruits that they will tell you anything and everything they possibly can to make you sign up and to get you arrived. And once you're arrived, then there's going to be other people that decide where you're going to go, and that's not something that's well known, I guess. It's like,
yeah,
oh, they told me I was going to go to gold or whatever. And then you end up replacing somebody. Like, there was a lot of people that this happened to, and when they were establishing Scientology media productions, they pulled people from all over the world and told them, you're gonna go to this new organization that's being established called Scientology Media Productions, and you're gonna be able to, do your music or do your art or whatever there. We really need these kind of people. And then they'd arrive, and then it would be determined in some way that they're like not qualified, and so they'd be used to replace somebody else to go there. And it's like, okay, well, for now you're going to help get this person to Scientology Media Productions while you work on your qualifications so that you can eventually go to Scientology Media Productions. And you're just like, okay.
And you might be in that post for years before you ever move. Yeah.
Yeah. Or forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some like common questions that you think would work, that you, if someone, for example, was protesting outside an org or live streaming and seeing people going in and out, but they don't have any Scientology experience themselves, you know, perhaps they're just watching videos and want to do what they can, what would you advise? Like, what questions could they ask or things they could say that would get staff members or SEAL members to start thinking if they can't make it relatable to their personal experience?
Yeah, if they could get somebody one-on-one, without them feeling, without the person feeling intimidated or scared of them, because a lot of the times when you're in the Sea Org or on staff, you're kind of scared of the protesters
Yeah.
and scared of the SPs, because OSA will like keep you away and security will keep you away from those people. Like you can't go up and talk to those people. You're not allowed to go up and talk to them. And it's going to look really weird. Like you will literally, you will get in trouble, for lack of a better descriptive phrase, um, for talking to protesters. You
Sure.
can't do that. Only OSA can talk. Only OSA and security and those authorized people can talk to the protesters. They will go through great lengths to keep people away from protesters. But if you happen to run into a staff member, a Scientologist, you remember, what kind of questions? God, what kind of questions?
Like, what would have worked for you when you were at Columbus, right? And you were a SEAL member,
Yeah.
but you're working in Div 6, you're meeting people on the streets and so on, but you're questioning. You haven't decided to leave, but but nobody knows that there's a part of you inside that's questioning, is this really what I want to do? If someone had come up to you while you were in that point of questioning in your mind, what do you think could have been said that would have helped you along with that process? Well, like if someone asked you, hey, when was the last time you saw your family, or something along those lines?
It would probably be something like, are you doing what you really want to do in life? It might be something like that. But also, just as a point on that, I was so distrustful of the outside world and people outside of Scientology, and and part of that was because I had disconnected from my mom, and I felt like that was the right decision at the time. But I also was kind of scared that there'd be somebody who was trying to get to me because they were trying to help her, and so if anyone said anything weird to me, I would probably just not even I would probably just walk away and not say anything to them, because I'd probably be like, "Oh, they're my mom just asked them to come and talk to me or something," and I'd be
Right.
like, I was all scared about it, you know? I was very distrustful of the outside world,
Yeah.
and I think that's the case with a lot of Sea Org members, maybe not public Scientologists so much, but a lot of Sea Org members, because 'cause they're just kept so, um I guess sheltered kind of from
Yeah.
the outside world,
Controlled.
even if they're in the middle of LA, you know? It's weird, it's a really weird thing. Middle of Hollywood, and you're kept from the outside world,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's very controlled. And we talked about this before. Like, for example, you know, if there's protesting going on outside a building every day, they'll just change the schedule. So the SEAL members will come in at a different
That's
time or
right.
go to a different building. So it doesn't actually affect the production, but it does mean that the SEAL members aren't going to see the protesting. And as soon
Yeah,
as it stops, they'll move back there and carry on. So they go to great lengths to ensure that the messages they're receiving are controlled. And everything you'll hear as a SEAL member or as a staff member will be that SPs are making it up, or this person's bad and this person said this. And, you know, everything that you're told about these people leaves you in a place where you will be scared or concerned or worried about
yeah.
SPs. And so I'm just trying to think about, you know, if you were to bump into a Scientologist in a coffee shop and they don't know that you're, you know, a protester or an ex-Scientologist or whatever, what could you say that would help, you know,
I'm
get them
I'm
thinking?
so stumped on this. Oh, to get them thinking, I mean, you could say, if you really wanna get them thinking, you could say, "Hey, did you know the clear cognition is blah, 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 blah?"
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Uh."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. And things like the
Or
ideologues
did you
as
know that
well.
there's no OT levels past OT 8?
Yeah.
That's the one that really got me when I found that out. I was like, really? And especially because the person who said it, or the person that the information came from, was somebody who I knew worked on that kind of thing. He worked in tech. He worked with L. Ron Hubbard. And I was like, wow, well, if he's saying it, then yeah, it must be true.
Yeah.
That's weird. No OT levels past the OT8. So what are we doing exactly?
Yeah. And things like the ideal orgs, you're told that all of the orgs are expanding and, it's growth everywhere across the world, and Scientology is the fastest growing religion. But quite often people think it's just their orgs because the orgs are actually empty.
Yeah.
So Scientologists will be seeing no people in the course room, nobody coming in, and they'll just think, oh, everywhere else is busy and it's huge and it's expanding. It's just our org that's not. So
Except when you're in management. When you're in management, your cognitive dissonance on that has to be even stronger, because then you see org by org these orgs that are just staying small and not expanding and going backwards and having rent problems and losing staff, and you see all this stuff happening, and then you have to somehow justify it to yourself. Okay, well then that just means that they're doing the org is doing something wrong. They're not applying such and such policy. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. And that's why Miscavige keeps coming out with golden age of this and golden age of that and ideal this and this and that, and this is the next thing that is going to expand the orgs no matter what. And then when the orgs don't expand, and when there's not a ton of people coming in, then he comes down on management. He's like, well, you're not doing my strategy. You're not doing the golden age tech. You're not doing the golden jet. I mean, you better get going and do this. And then in management, you sit there thinking, oh, it's just because we're not implementing these strategies. And that's why the orgs are staying small.
Yeah.
That's
But
unbelievable.
how do you go about changing someone's mindset on that? Because if you're aware that the orgs aren't expanding, but you think it's your fault because you're not doing it correctly, it's like, well, Dave Miscavige will say, well, here's the next thing. If you do this, we'll figure it. Or we realized that, someone had changed what LRH said. And so it wasn't pure Scientology, because the belief is that Scientology works 100% of the time if it's done correctly. So the only reason it's not working is because it's not being done correctly. How do you start that process of going, well, every org on the planet, there must be at least one org that's doing it correctly, surely, right?
Yeah.
It can't be that they're all doing it incorrectly, because all of the orgs are empty. It's not just yours.
That's right. That's right.
How do you start that process of taking apart that cognitive dissonance?
Well, I like this one. There's somebody in the comments, Patrick Skinner. I wonder who that is. I don't know if I've ever seen that name before. Have you looked at the real stats in your last Have you looked at the real stats in your last doubt formula?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm trying to remember
like, for example, with book sales, right? I've got the stats from when I was in Scientology and selling books. We were selling 200 books a week at sometimes, and 100 books a week was kind of the new level we got to. And then occasionally when there was a bookathon, we get up to 200. But nowadays, London's selling like 20 books. So just whenever I see them in London, I kind of say, hey, if Scientology is expanding, why are book sales like way less than they were 10 years ago? Like, stats should now be way more than 100 books a week if it's expanding, surely.
Right.
People don't look at stats in the long term. They just look week by week.
Exactly. That's one of their downfalls, is that they don't know how to, is that they go week by week. And if it's up, great. If it's down, then you're gonna be doing condition formulas.
Yeah. Road to Freedom here has a good comment. So saying there's only 25,000 Scientologists in the world would blow their mind. I think so.
I don't even know if, because that's not, I'm trying to think.
Because you're told there are millions of Scientologists around the world. And you see these videos produced by SMP of like all of the tests, like the test center being filled with people, all the course rooms being busy, and Flag having, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people there all the time. But your org is empty. And so by kind of highlighting that, no, it's not just your org. All of the orgs are like that.
All of the orgs are like that.
There are only 25,000, 30,000, whatever the estimate is, Scientologists in the world. That I can imagine would start people thinking along the lines of, oh, well, that's not what Miscavige said, but it does ring true because the org's empty. What else doesn't add up?
If you were to pull together some of these facts like that, like there's only 25,000 Scientologists in the whole world. Hey, did you know there's only 25,000 Scientologists in the whole world? Oh, well, that's not true. And but it would get them thinking. If you put together those kind of just like bullet points, kind of like, or have you ever wondered why your org is so empty?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of what I would say to somebody in management. Have you ever wondered why? Have you ever wondered why the orgs are still not expanding, no matter how hard you work?
Yeah. What do you think, what condition do you think Miscavige has put Scientology in at the moment? Because for those of you watching that don't know what that means, basically there are condition formulas. So based on what the stats are doing, you have to apply different techniques to solve the issue. So either your stats are going up or they're going down, you know, it's expanding or it's not expanding. Surely Miscavige is looking at the stats and has concluded that Scientology is shrinking. Like, there's no way he genuinely looks at the stats and thinks it's in affluence or power or whatever. Like, there's declining number of people on course, there's declining people walking in. So he should look at the stats and be applying emergency or something along those lines. And I wonder if that is actually the case, because when your stats are going down, the solution is promote, right? The idea is get more messaging out, get more advertising. And if you look at what they're doing at the moment in the UK, they want to hand out, I think it's 1 million truth about drugs booklets in the UK. They want to hand out 1 million in Paris for the Olympics. There's
that's
a massive push to promote. To promote, which is emergency formula.
Well, do you remember in the birthday game issues where it says if every org were to apply emergency just as a whole, if they just keep applying emergency and if they have an affluence, apply affluence to that specific area or stat or whatever. I'm sure that's probably what's being done. And danger, which means they bypass, because he bypasses all the time. And
so questions like, for example, if Scientology is expanding, why are you spending so much time and effort promoting? Because that's not the formula for affluence or for power or whatever condition Scientology is in at the moment. You shouldn't be promoting as much. Like, why is there such a big push to promote?
Oh, they will always promote. Always. Doesn't matter what
but I mean, they're doing so more now in recent times. Like, there is clearly an effort and a push to get more Dianetics, get more truth about drugs booklets. Like, the promote line is, I think, more so now than before. And the only reason you would be doing that, if you're going to use Scientology tech, is because the stats are going down. Like, what
you got it exactly.
What do you think about that? Like, using Scientology techniques or formulas and like knowledge of Scientology when you're speaking to Scientologists.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. And especially if you show, because then that also shows that you know what you're talking about. You're not just a random person who's decided that they can make a lot of money protesting Scientology and go and yell at people on TikTok and do this stuff because it makes them money. It's like, no, you're an actual person who knows a little bit about Scientology and maybe knows some people who were in it, or maybe you were involved in it yourself and you're actually trying to make a change, or you're trying to actually help somebody or you're trying to help your friends or whatever. You're not just, anyway, I could go on a roll on that.
So what sort of things would you say would work when it comes to using Scientology? You know, like we just said, the stats.
I think it's like you say, if you say like, let's see. Like, what condition do you think Scientology is in? Or what
Mm,
condition do you think Scientology should be applying as a whole?
mm.
Or what condition is your org in, and how long have they been in it?
Yeah. And questions like, if you speak to an old timer, someone that's been in Scientology for a long time, perhaps who were at St. Hill or somewhere like that, you know, during the heyday when Scientology is booming and the course rooms are really, really filled up with people all the time. If Scientology is expanding, why are there less people in the course room now than there were back then when LRH was alive?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and
a very good
if there's
question.
less people there now, surely that means you should be applying the formula for promotion. You know, you're in emergency, but Dave Miscavige has always said that Scientology is expanding. So is he applying the incorrect formula, or is he lying
It's so
about the expansion?
contradictory. It's so contradictory. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Scientology is expanding at a mad rate, but at the same time, we need to get more people in right now,
yeah,
and we need to promote right now and get all these people in. But we are expanding at a mad rate. We're the fastest growing religion.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
God. It's so contradictory.
And pointing out those contradictions, I think, helps, because, like, when I was in Scientology, if someone was to come up to me and say, you know, blah, 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 Scientology is a cult, I would just shut down, not listen to them, and just try and convince them otherwise. But if they asked me questions and said, hey, you know, why is your org, if your org has only got, you know, 100 book sales a week or 20 or whatever, if all of the orgs on the planet were doing that, then surely that would mean you're selling 10,000 a week or whatever. How many
Yeah,
Scientologists does that make a week? Is that really expanding? You know,
yeah,
asking questions to start me thinking about the contradiction. When Gold came to shoot the test center for the event, for the birthday game event, we had to grab people off the street and bring them in and say, hey, can you just sit in the building just for a little bit? Because we need to make it look busy for the video. So I knew at that point that we were being lied to with the videos. We needed to make it look busier than it is so that it looks good on camera. So when I next saw an event, I was like, yeah, I know they're all staged. But that didn't get me doubting and thinking the numbers were being
yeah.
inflated also.
Yeah,
I just
because you
thought,
think you're doing that because that's gonna result in more people coming in. If
mm,
you show that there's a lot of people in the org, even if you staged it, but if you show there's a lot of people, then that's gonna mean that there's gonna be a lot of new people that wanna come in and check it out.
mm.
So it's okay. It's okay to stage that kind of stuff.
But why do you need to stage it if it's expanding? You know,
Because
you
it's really
shouldn't have to.
not.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Pointing out
Yeah,
those
yeah,
questions,
and then
the
that goes
contradictions.
back to, okay, so it's really not expanding because you're not doing what L. Ron Hubbard says to do to expand the org. So
Yeah,
you need to do what he says, because that's why it's not expanding.
yeah, exactly. Road to Freedom here says, don't they
Mhm.
also send SEAL people to ideal org openings around the world? If there's that many Scientologists, then they wouldn't need to send people to other countries. That's a really
Yeah,
good point.
they take who's ever in yeah, kind of. I mean, they'll take who's ever in the area. Like when San Diego opened, everybody in LA went down to San Diego,
Mm,
for example. All the Sea Org bases, everybody went down there. Um, and that's to, make the crowd big, make it look like there's a lot of people there.
yeah,
And there were like mostly staff and Sea Org members. But it looked good.
yeah. And that's the thing is,
Appearances.
like, for example, asking questions. If there are thousands of Scientologists in the area, why do I need to go to the ideal org opening? Like, why do staff need to travel? Like, there should be enough Scientologists there that there's not space for people to come from the other
Yeah.
orgs.
Oh, this is a great one. Why is your org so dead compared to how it looks in Destination Scientology?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If you're actually in the org doing a tour or something, or if you're there in
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Wow,
one.
that's a great
Absolutely.
one. Could do that to Portland.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking we're coming up to an hour, so we'll start wrapping up. I'm just thinking, relating it back to your experience when you were on your iPod and you were watching videos and stuff, you had questions in your mind. What were a couple of things that really resonated with you that helped you finally decide, okay, this is the right thing to do, I'm gonna leave? because you also had John speaking to you and asking you questions and helping with that, right? But he never
Yeah.
tried to convince you.
No, he didn't. He didn't try to tell me that I should leave. He just asked me. He asked me, well, when are you going to become a professional photographer?
Yeah.
That was a good one. That one really got me thinking. Oh my god, that would be so awesome. I would just love to take photos all the time. But some of the things that really resonated with me, like I talked about, the there's no OT levels past OT 8. There's no OT 9 and 10. There's nothing past any of those levels. What the clear cognition was resonated with me, because I was like, that's it. That's what it is. So I wonder how many hours of auditing I would spend so that I could come up with that. And you're not ever told, oh yeah, that's what the clear cognition, like you're not told definitely that's what it is.
Yeah.
And what else? I read a policy towards the end of the time that I was there, and it was called it was one of the public relations policies, but it talks about telling an acceptable truth.
Acceptable truth. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a lie, it's an acceptable truth.
That's right. It's an acceptable truth. And I read that, and I had read it before. I've studied a lot of Scientology policy, and I've definitely read that one many times. But somehow it really clicked with me, where I was like, so it's not a lie, it's an acceptable truth. Interesting. And I was like, no, I don't agree with that. I really don't. That's not right. I really don't agree with that. And that was kind of the first time that I admitted to myself that I didn't agree with something in policy.
Right.
So there was that. And then the gaslighting, what is it called? Truth rundown. Truth rundown.
Truth rundown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're told
rundown.
where you're told basically the truth, but it's actually what Scientology wants you to believe.
Yeah, no. This is the truth rundown. The truth rundown is if you've been Leah Remini had this, and I think Chris Shelton did too, or he at least talked about it in great detail. But I know Leah did it. Which is, okay, so you are guilty of spreading black PR on Scientology executives or chairman of the board or prominent Scientology celebrities like Tom Cruise. So you're spreading black PR. So you're taken into an auditing session, confessional, interrogation, whatever. And they try to get you, they take this like black PR line that you may have said, like, I don't know, make something up. Staff don't get paid. So they find out, like, okay, so when did you first think that? Or who did you hear that from? Okay, so what overt act did you commit on around that time, or to the person or who you heard that from, um or you have similar overts, like did you steal money or something like that? And then you're gotten to basically believe that or you're gotten to not believe, to say that you don't believe, okay, it's not really true that staff don't get paid, it's just because of my own overts that I said that. It's not really true that staff don't get paid. So it's not really true that David Miscavige punched somebody. I saw David Miscavige punch someone. It's just because I had an overt on David Miscavige, and so that's why I said that. Even though you saw him punch someone.
Yeah.
So and this is actually kept, excuse me. This is kept confidential. This rundown, what is done in this rundown is kept confidential. Very, very much kept under wraps from Scientologists, your members, staff, unless they actually do the rundown. And it's not just done you don't just do it in a regular org. You go to a Sea org. This is like all this stuff, and because and they keep it confidential because it is gaslighting.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And it's trying to say that you're the reason for X happening. You know, what
Yeah.
did you do
Yeah.
to put, you know, if you went in and said, oh, someone told me that Scientology isn't really expanding. So, okay, well, what did you do to put yourself in a situation where you spoke to a suppressive person? And it's like, well, no, hold on. We're not addressing the thing here, which is that Scientology is not expanding. That's the issue. No, you're the issue, right? Because you never actually have the opportunity to have an open discussion and debate about things in Scientology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's your responsibility. It's because you did something wrong. You committed an overt act. Blah blah blah.
Mm.
It's all you.
Yeah.
So when I found out what that was a huge turning point for me, because then I decided I am never going to submit to this truth rundown.
Mm.
Never, ever, ever. And if I would have stuck around and they found out that I got all this horrible black PR from all these SPs, they would eventually sooner rather than later want to give me the truth rundown. I knew
Mm.
that. So, and I'm like, I'm never going to do that. I thought it to myself, I'm never going to do it. and then and then the next thought after that is, okay, so there's auditing that I will not accept. There is auditing that I will not accept, which I never thought I would say that to myself or think that or
Mm.
anything. So then that was a matter of, okay, so that makes me that much more ready to leave Scientology,
Mm.
because there's something I can reject from it, and I can
Yeah.
probably reject more.
It's planting the seed, isn't it? And
Yeah.
watering it over time.
Yeah.
I wish there was like one thing you could say to a Scientologist that would get them to snap out of it and
Yeah.
they leave, but it's planting seeds. It takes time. But you never know where someone is at on that journey, right? You never
Exactly.
know. They could be having doubts and thinking about it for years and years and years. And you asking one question is finally the straw that breaks the camel's back and they leave. Or you could be the first person to ever plant a seed of doubt in their head. They've never thought about leaving, but
Yeah.
you ask them a question and now they're thinking about it. And 5 years later, they leave or whatever. So you don't really know where someone's at. So it's just about how do you help people
That's right.
rather than anything else. In my mind, that's how I approach it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, that's totally right. And again, if there's anyone if there's anyone watching this who knows the person I was talking about earlier, the German guy, his name is Chris. He's in LA in the international liaison office. And yeah, I'd like him to listen to what I have to say. We are
Mm,
friends for many, many years, and I think I should be given a chance to say what I want to say.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
me.
Alex.
We've got your channel. I've put the link in the description. Everyone go and
Oh,
give
good.
Katherine a subscribe. And how do people contact you if they want to reach out to you? Do you have a
Um,
public email address
my email should be
on your
somewhere on my
channel?
channel in the descriptions. I'm pretty sure it is.
Awesome. If not,
Um,
you can contact me, hello@apostatealex.com, and I'll forward it to you, Katherine.
great.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
awesome.
Are
Well,
there any?
thank you so much. Go on.
I guess we don't have any questions, huh?
I
There
think
was
we kind of been
something I
going
wanted
through
to
them as we went
say.
on.
Uh,
There's one here, Patrick Skinner. The reason that San Diego Ideal Org remained in its old location was because the purchase building was bought with Davies' approval and was found that the only load-bearing beam was cracked open. Wow.
Patrick Skinner. I know that name. Okay, Patrick Skinner, you need to contact me somehow. Please do. Please email me on my email that's on my channel, or email Alex and tell me how I can reach you, because I'd love to talk to you. You sound like you know a lot of stuff, and I think it'd
Yeah,
be really interesting to talk to you.
sounds
That's all.
good. All righty. Katherine, thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
me. And
Alex. Thanks,
thank you so
everybody.
much for watching, everybody. Go and give Katherine some love and subscribe to her channel. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and buy us coffee and all of that if you want to support us financially. That's
Yeah.
it for us. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye, guys.